Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be welcoming back John Kapelos, who played Carl the janitor in The Breakfast Club. I'm having him back on the show today to talk about movie rules we didn't get to talk about last time, like Roxanne, The Boost, The Shadow, The Craft, anything that has "the" in the title, as well as, autofocus and his Seinfeld appearance, for that matter, as well. And I can't wait. John is really cool, nice guy, has some great stories, and glad to have him back on. So yeah, here is my new interview with John Kapelos.
Hello.
Hey John, how are you?
Good. I was like going, God, I hope you got my number, because I left my computer at my office and I was looking. Anyway, here you are.
Yes, here I am. Welcome back. How's everything?
Things are good. I've been dealing with a few minor health issues and everything's getting better, so, I can't complain.
Oh, that's good. I feel bad. I'm glad everything's okay, though.
Yeah, no, it's life, and, it deals you certain things. I mean, nothing serious. I've been having a little bit of this thing called tinnitus, which is noise in my ear.
Right.
And I don't know where the frig frag it came from, but it's been mighty annoying, and it seems to be getting a little bit better, so.
Oh, that's good.
It's really a horrible thing, though, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah.
So how are you?
Oh, I am spectacular.
Do you have a cold?
A little bit, yeah. It's that time of the year,
Yeah, I know. I mean, where are you physically? Where exactly?
Redding, California.
Right. So is it?
Yeah.
I was up in San Francisco last week, and it's much cooler than LA.
Yeah, it's allergy season.
Allergy thing, right?
Yeah, it's fall over here.
Yeah. So what are you allergic to? Everything?
I'm allergic to like dust and pollen and stuff like that, sulfur.
My sister did a test, and she lives in horse country in Virginia, and she's allergic to horses.
Oh, that's
no
great.
That really works.
That's no good. I hope she eventually gets out.
Oh, she does, but life goes on. You gotta deal with it all.
Yeah. So when we last left off, we had been talking about Nothing in Common. Now I want to ask you about Roxanne. I'm sorry. Roxanne.
Yeah, I never did Roxanne. So.
Roxanne.
Certainly.
To me, it's one of the best things Steve Martin has ever done. I mean, was the energy there on the set?
Oh yeah, I got to tell you, it's one of the most fun film experiences I've ever had was Roxanne.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely, the energy was on the set. Fred, the director, is Australian.
Right.
And he and his cameraman, Ian Baker, had a particular type of really great energy. I mean, it's interesting to use the word energy, because the film had a lot of exactly that. And Fred, we shot in Nelson, British Columbia, a lot of the film.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a nice small town in Canada, in the sort of the Rocky Mountain area of Canada. And you can look it up on the map. It's a charming little town, and that was the town in the movie. And Fred insisted that, he asked us all to come to this interesting little movie theater in the town, old movie theater, where we watched the dailies every night. And in those days, films were shot on film, and so we'd get the footage back 2 days later, whatever. It would come from Hollywood, and they'd send the dailies up, and they'd rack them up like in a movie, and we'd watch everybody's work every night around 7:30, 8 o'clock, and it was really great. The whole cast would gather there. There'd be popcorn and stuff, and people would be hooting and hollering, and it gave us a chance to see what sort of movie was being made.
Mm-hmm. The movie takes place in Washington or Oregon, right?
Right, I think it's in Washington State, right.
Wow.
And they dressed the whole downtown of Nelson in the movie with, got rid of all the Canadian-looking stuff, and covered the banks that had, the Royal Bank of Canada and made it, Bank of America. And all the post boxes were, made into USPS. I mean, they dressed it like an American town. And so that was pretty brilliant. I actually grew up with one of the guys who was the production, one of the art directors in the film. And they had a heck of a job doing that, and it was really good. But the thing about us seeing the film every night, or at least watching the dailies, right?
Right.
Was that we all sort of got a sense of what sort of film we were in. Because oftentimes you're in a movie, and you may not know what the whole is like, right?
Right.
And we got a chance to see Steve's really amazing performance unfold. And it was, I thought, and still do, it's kind of Chaplin-esque.
Yeah.
Very fine, very well observed, and it was neat. And invariably, we all sort of got figured out the tone of the movie. It was really smart of Fred to do that.
Yeah. I interviewed Rich Scheidner, and he told me that bar scene with the dartboard and the nose jokes. I mean, he says it was just hysterically funny. The film.
Yeah. It was. It was one of those experiences that I'll always hold with me. I mean, I look back on my career, and it's one of the. It really stands out, because the fact is, sometimes you make a movie and it's not fun to do, and it might be difficult location, might be difficult people or situations. It might even be a script that is intense, or even if it's comedy, it might be hard to pull off.
Right.
And then you see the film, and it's a good film. And sometimes you have a blast doing a movie, and you see the product, and it's really not good.
Yeah.
And then this is one of these situations where the amount of fun and energy, as you used very properly, that went into the project is reflected in the project and the final film product, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
This was one of those golden times. And I think that anybody that worked on the movie would tell you that.
Mm-hmm. Do you still?
I was talking to Fred Willard recently about Roxanne, and we always, when we get together, we invariably mention a few things about it, and he feels the same way.
Yeah, it's a great movie. Do people still quote that line to you that you used throughout June 1985?
Yeah. Weren't you Playmate of the Month, June 85? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other one that comes tripping back to me is the Nelson tradition of hot tubbing. Mulled wine and some, outdoor hot tubbing.
Yeah. That's great.
And Steve is a real gentleman. He's a real master. He's a very, very, how should I put it? He's a very, very quiet guy,
Mm-hmm.
Unusually sort of to himself. I mean, much different than a lot of people in showbiz. I know that he is doing a show with Marty Short, and Martin Short is like, incredibly kinetic off screen, not unlike, Robin Williams was. But Steve sort of, it's almost like I always made fun of, well, not made fun of him too. People ask me what it's like working with Steve Martin. It's almost like, after the puppet is gone, it sort of just, the strings go down, and he just sort of goes back into his puppet. He's a very, very focused, highly intelligent, and really sensitive guy. I really respect him a lot.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I love The Boost.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's a great movie. I think.
Well, it's of its time, and why do you like it?
I think that it's one of James Woods' best performances. He's one of my favorite actors, and I love how the movie has a great commentary, like you said, for its time, about how L.A. and success and equals cocaine, and it could be very fatal. I just love the story it tells.
Yeah, it's one of those cautionary tales, and it just goes from good, bad to worse. And it was a heck of a movie to make too, I have to say. I mean, I enjoyed that experience for different reasons. It was not what I would say a fun movie to shoot.
Yeah.
Although there were funny and fun aspects of it. I mean, I remember the director, Harold Becker, who is still with us. He's like 92.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very New York accent. And like Jimmy, there was a sequence where I had to teach him how to do coke, you know.
Yeah.
Do this stuff, or you know, faith may move mountains. This stuff just makes them fly. I remember is my line. Funny, I remember those things. And Harold said, I don't know how people do cocaine. What do? They stick it up their nose? Well, how do they do it this way? In this very New York accent.
Yeah.
And Jimmy and I looked at one another and said, well, Harold, having been around people that do it or knowing people that do it, without sort of giving up the ghost that actually maybe you had tried it at some point. But,
Yeah.
What I was snorting in the movie, what everybody was snorting in the film was baby laxative.
Oh my God.
And I was shooting in Long Beach, and then which was about maybe 45 minutes at night or an hour away from my home at night in Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
the Hollywood Hills then.
Yeah.
And like you'd be getting this rumbling in your tummy on the freeway, and you're going, oh no, I've been snorting this baby laxative all day. So, needless to say, I was quite healthy. As my father would say, the trains ran on time.
There's a scene where he's freebasing with Amanda Blake, and on the DVD commentary track he says, it was an honor and a privilege to be freebasing with Miss Kitty.
I know. And you know, she, poor lady, she passed away shortly thereafter of AIDS, if you can believe it.
Wow, I didn't know it was AIDS.
Yeah, I believe it was because of either a blood transfusion or from a boyfriend or something like that. But that was pretty sad.
Yeah, that's terrible.
But she was, she was neat, and Jimmy is really, you reference the word energy, man. That guy is a mile a minute.
Yeah.
Acting. I mean, I'm talking about naturally. I'm not referencing the fact that he was doing anything else, which he wasn't.
Yeah.
He's just a ball of fire.
Mm-hmm.
And his portrayal is pretty deft. I mean, when you see him at the end, there was a scene that we shot that was never put in the movie that I have on VHS cassette, if you can believe.
I got lots of VHS. Yeah.
Me too. He comes to me after I've sort of, given him this habit, or he's opened up this whirl of addiction to him.
Yeah.
And he comes to me saying, listen, he needs some money and help. And I tell him to get off the blow, man. You just got to get off the blow. And the whole time I'm talking to him, I'm on my tennis court.
Mm-hmm.
I'm whacking balls back to a ball machine. And it was a really effective scene that sorry they didn't use, because I took like a month and a half of tennis lessons to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Sponsored by the film company. And we shot it on Norman Lear's tennis court in Brentwood. But it was one of these scenes where he was so pathetic and so washed up because of what it was going on with him addiction-wise that, and he didn't do very much in terms of, like, he just sort of, his shoulders were sort of bent down, and he was kind of looking, his face was really sallow or whatever, very, very drawn, not feeling. It was just really an interesting scene, and too bad it's not in the film. But Daryl Ponnickson wrote the screenplay, and it was from a book by what's his name? The guy that was in Ferris Bueller. I'm blanking on his name, of course.
Ben Stein.
Ben Stein, right, of course.
Yeah.
And there was a producer on it, Daniel Blatt, who has since shuffled off the mortal coil, but it was a really, really good producer. It was a really tight team.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was one of those films that, like Roxanne, and also, all the films I've worked on I have certain memories of.
Yeah.
And most of them are good,
Yeah.
There was one day on the Boost where I had to shoot another film, and I shot for 8 hours on another film, which is a horrible movie that I don't think ever, if it came out, called All's Fair.
I never heard of it.
Yeah, right. It never really got traction. It was a comedy. And I remember getting home at around 6 o'clock at night, and it was one of those things where you feel like a cold coming on.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, man, I'm getting sick. And I lay down, and the phone rang, and it was like, this is the Boost. We need you to shoot in Long Beach. So I said, what? They said, yeah, we need you like in an hour. Can you get here? I said, well, look, I'm not feeling well. So they sent a car for me. It drove me to Long Beach. And it was one of these, I worked till 8 in the morning. So, and then I had started the other movie at 6 in the morning. So I'd worked like a 26-hour day.
Wow.
It's that day I remember. It's quite vividly. And getting back home and like sleep. Luckily it was a Saturday night or Friday night. So I slept for 2 days.
The woman who plays your girlfriend, she really embodies the stuck-up L.A. Trophy wife.
Yeah, she. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on her name now too.
Kelly Kerr.
Kelly Kerr. Yeah, I really liked Kelly. She and she's also a person that had some off-screen issues vis-a-vis addiction. She told me about. So she really came to the part with a lot of internal memory,
Yeah.
And yeah, I really loved working with her.
Nice.
Although, I just blanked on her name. Yeah, again, like as opposed to, let's say, Roxanne, which is a comedy, the material in this was difficult to do.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole sequence where she falls down the stairs and she's pregnant and all that stuff. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Tough to take. And, but if you live through those times, there were a lot of people, there were a lot of casualties. And unfortunately, the 80s was chock-a-block with cocaine. And, I was in Chicago and then New York and then LA. That was part of my career where I moved, worked at Second City, and there was a fair bit in and around there. I wouldn't say, the companies were pretty good, but there were a lot of people that were, it was sprinkling everywhere. And
Yeah.
of course, there were casualties at Second City, like John Belushi and Chris Farley.
Right.
And it hit home rather dramatically. Home being Second City. Like I was in the main stage company when John Belushi died.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, very close to a lot of people, particularly our piano player, Fred Kaz. And we all went to New York and went to the funeral, and, it was tough because that was kind of a media death.
Yeah.
And, they published his autopsy on the front page of the New York Times. It was not pretty. And like that.
Yeah.
So the movie, to me, had a particularly, the subject matter I thought was important.
Yeah. It's a great movie. You were on a very funny episode of Seinfeld.
Now, cocaine related, right?
Yeah. The sniffling accountant.
Yeah, the sniffing accountant was, and somebody said recently, they said it's one of the top 10 episodes of Seinfeld. I don't know about that. But, again, that was that was fun to do. It was one of these things, honestly, like Thursday afternoon, I get a call from my agent. They'd like you to audition for Seinfeld. I went, sure. Like it's 1 or 2 p.m. or something. So I get the sides, the scene that I'm supposed to shoot, faxed over to me or something, which dates it. And I go over to CBS Radford, which was like 15 minutes from where I live, where I presently live, too. And literally, I do the audition. And after the audition, they say, okay, hang here for a second. And then they come back and say, we're doing a network read-through in an hour. We'd like you to stay for that. So what? What do you mean, network read-through? And they say, oh, yeah, you got the part. Network read-through means at the end of every day, the cast assembles and all the powers that be come and they watch a run-through of the show.
Yeah.
So that was my, initiation by fire on Seinfeld. And I had this really long hair at the time, and they sort of liked it and then mulletized it, made it into a mullet.
Yeah.
And it worked. And I have to say, I was pretty intimidated shooting that show because it was so popular.
Yeah.
And but it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah, everybody I talked to who was on Seinfeld tells me they could barely just get through the day because they were laughing so hard.
Well, I mean, there you have the scene, and I've said this to other people. I've told this story, but I certainly don't mind telling you that when I shot the scene with Kramer, where he's in the bar, Larry David came up to me and said, "Listen, John, we don't know what Michael is going to do. He's going to improvise a lot of stuff, and it might be pretty whack, and it might be out there, but the audience is going to go ape shit. They're going to laugh, and but you cannot laugh because we don't want to wreck any of the takes." And I said, understood. And, I'm sort of used, when I did comedy, I was sort of used to being the goofy guy, or at least not the straight guy, but in this situation, I was the straight guy, which I was more than pleased to do. With a lot, the character was sort of looking at him and going, what WTF is going on with him? And then they rolled camera, and he did stuff like the bar opened up and hit him on the head, and like he drank a beer with a cigarette in his mouth. Sometimes I like to feel good all the time, and he drinks beer,
Yeah.
Like, the audience is going crazy. Even the cameramen are trying to keep the cameras from moving and are chuckling behind the camera. And I just kept on saying to myself, do not laugh, keep it going, do not laugh. So after a couple of takes of like realizing that this is really challenging for me, my left side was basically the downstage side, and Michael was on my upstage side. And all the cameras are sort of to my left and around that sort of arc. So what I did, and if you watch it every time, is that I bit into the right inside side part of my cheek.
Yeah.
In my mouth, just to keep me from not laughing. I just would bite down, and you can see very subtly my jawline sort of tighten when he's doing his stuff.
Right.
Because I'm just biting down on the inside of my cheek because I just do not want to laugh. And I didn't laugh. But when I came home that night and I looked inside and looked in the mirror and I saw the inside of my cheek, I'd taken like a huge chunk out of my cheek. So, the perils of acting, right?
Right.
Perils of acting with Michael Richards, who I think is one of the funniest guys I've ever worked with.
Oh, yeah. He's hilarious, that guy.
And hardworking, if you might know the truth. He's not a barrel of laughs off screen. I mean, he's funny. He's always looking for what to do, and he's thinking, and he's moving around, and he's a, really, really technically brilliant actor, comedian in that regard.
He's dedicated.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding.
How about the craft?
The craft was not, I don't do much in it. I worked with Helen Shaver, and, I researched how people have heart attacks, and I went in and I said, well, sometimes they're just, silent and not very dramatic, and the guy says, I want dramatic and I want big. So, I went for like the banging the chest, googling the eyes out. It wasn't a film that, I like the movie, and I think that, I think it's an interesting film to be in.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a film that I spent a lot of time working on. It was a couple days. So I don't have memories of all the other people. I just have memories of my scene.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Helen Shaver, who is in it with me, is, I think, a great actress. And
yeah.
And Fairuza Balk is a trip. She was, in her, she played that little girl in the remake of they did that Wizard of Oz thing.
Yeah, Return to Oz.
Return to Oz. Have you ever seen that film?
A long time ago. It scared the shit out of me.
Yeah, I think it scared the shit out of most audiences. It didn't, it wasn't as well loved as the original.
Yeah.
But she was in her sort of goth phase there, on and off screen.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything, the people making that film were taking themselves a little too seriously, in my opinion.
That's too bad.
No, but they were into it. And I don't think it's too bad. I think they were sort of, into their roles in the film. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. I thought you said that they weren't. I thought you were saying that they weren't nice or something.
Oh no. They were cordial and everything, but they were sort of into it. So they were taking themselves very, the whole thing really seriously.
I see.
And sometimes, like Laurence Olivier said to Dustin Hoffman when they were making Marathon Man, why don't you try acting?
Yeah.
You know that story?
Yeah, I love that classic quote.
Yeah. It's like, and sometimes, off screen they were like just as witchy and scary as on screen. So I was like, okay, I'm going to walk away from this coven.
Method acting.
Yeah, and sometimes the sort of misuse or misunderstanding of method acting, sometimes, people can be very extreme about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like Michael Shannon is an intense guy. I was on Shape of Water.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a great actor, but, he doesn't break sometimes. And that can be kind of exhausting for him as much as for other people around. But, you get your product and you get your result and you have your method. I am certainly not a critic of it because, it's how you get to the place you need to get to.
Mm-hmm. But autofocus.
Wow. I think Paul Schrader is a genius.
Mm-hmm.
If you bring up, I think Mike Figgis is, again, I don't know whether you want to talk about Internal Affairs.
That's a good movie.
I think it's a great movie, if you want to know the truth. If you see it, if you watch it recently, it's really a great film noir.
Mm-hmm.
Autofocus, I think Greg Kinnear is great in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I was playing a real Canadian actor named Bruno Gerussi. He was in the class of actors that came out of the National Theatre School around 1960 in Montreal, of I think William Shatner and Lloyd Bachner and John Kapelos. You know John Kapelos?
Kapelos. I think I might.
He plays the Greek restaurant owner in the remake of The Postman Rings Twice.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And also, come on, John, the wonderful Dean Wormer.
Oh, John Vernon.
And John Vernon. All those actors came from the National Theatre. They were all part of the same class.
Mm-hmm.
Bruno Gerussi was a very effusive Canadian actor,
mm-hmm.
curly hair, and in the 70s he had a big mustache, and he was a very good Stratford Shakespearean actor who did a TV show in Canada called Celebrity Cooks.
Nice.
And it was shot in Vancouver, and that was a real show. And the incident with the Kinnear portrays of that, what's with my memory this morning? With Hogan.
Bob Crane.
With Bob Crane is a true story.
Right.
And it's, I don't know whether there's any footage of it available. I never got to see any. But I showed up on the set, and this is a real tribute to Hollywood costume and makeup people. I showed up on the set, and this was just a day part for me.
Mm-hmm.
And Schrader, who is very laconic, very intense, and he sort of very talks softly. I showed up on the set, and I said, well, you know, to Schrader and to the movie people, or to the makeup and wardrobe people, you know, and I grew up in Canada, and
Mm-hmm.
I came home from high school, my mother would be watching Celebrity Cooks. It was one of these shows that aired in the early 70s, you know, 71, 2, 3.
Right.
And we at school would always kind of make fun of Bruno Cerruti because he was like, you know, he was like a Shakespearean actor. Ooh, this is wonderful! You've just made this pasta. Oh, you know, Zeus. You know, the gods will love it and things like that. He was very theatrical and very funny and quite endearing. And his daughter Tina is a casting director now in Canada. And Bruno again shuffled off the mortal coil many years ago. But anyway. To use a Shakespearean expression. So I show up on the set, and they go, well, you know, they're just about to do makeup and hair and stuff. I said, well, you know that Bruno Cerruti is a real person. And if I'm going to portray him, we have to actually get his look down. So thank goodness for the internet, or we went online, they went online and saw his picture. Went, oh. And I'm telling you, well, I know it's the makeup and hair trailer, but within an hour, they totally mocked up the wig and the mustache, the whole thing. And so for me, the look of this guy was important. I don't know whether I nailed him in terms of his unctuousness, because there was something funny about Bruno. He was very fawning on camera and everything. And he's very emotional and, you know, I remember talking to a friend of mine who worked at the CBC in Vancouver. That was my only experience with trying to get some research on this, and he told me that he was in the building the day that this happened, the CBC in Vancouver, when Bob Crane went off on this woman with the big breasts in the audience, and they had to stop taping.
Wow.
And it's a totally true story.
Yeah.
And he said that, you know, the guy was, you know, the guy was just so sex addicted and so focused on it that it was really a messed up thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the scene with him and Willem Dafoe masturbating.
Yeah.
Talking like they're just, you know, two guys watching cartoons that, you know, or whatever. It's just such a bizarre film.
Yeah.
It's unsettling, right?
It is. You know, I don't think anyone else in Hollywood ever had a gripping story quite like Bob Crane's.
No, and the ironic, you know, counterpoint that he was Hogan and, you know, on this show and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of all the tragic elements. And of course the way he died or was killed, basically. You know.
Mm-hmm.
It's an odd story. And I've had this career where, you know, I'm not afraid to do films like that, or when I'm asked to do films. Because sometimes people, well, how could you be in a movie like that? It's like, Paul Schrader, you know, he wrote Taxi Driver. You know, I'm not going to say no. And it may not be an A Paul Schrader film, it might be a B one. Have you ever seen Affliction?
Affliction. Oh yeah, that's the one James Coburn won the Academy Award for.
And Nick Nolte's in it, I think.
Yeah.
Where he pulls out his tooth on camera.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, these movies don't pull any punches.
No.
And, you know, there's intensity to it. I mean, I did this movie a few years ago, I don't know whether you saw, called Afternoon Delight. Joe Soloway directed.
I think I heard about it, though.
Yeah, well, check that one out.
Okay. So you've been working solid since the 80s. I mean, did you ever go through periods where you struggled?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, recent periods, like, you know, it's not always, you know, you give the illusion of being busy all the time, or at least your career does, but there are periods, there are fallow periods. And not that I'm in one now, because I'm not, but the fact is that every time I get a gig, I always think this is the last one I'm going to get. And if you talk truthfully to most actors, they all feel the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like being a trapeze artist. and you're looking for the next rung to come swinging your way.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't, boy, you're just falling down to the big mat down there, and you hope that you bounce up. I couldn't diagram the periods of inactivity because it's almost like, talking about, times between meals. Sometimes they can go for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that there's a rhythm to it. And, as you grow, change, age, your look and your, I'm not the same actor I was in my 20s. I mean, I did Breakfast Club at 27. I did Roxanne at 32 or 31. I mean, I did,
Mm-hmm.
I did Internal Affairs at, this. And you get into your 40s and 50s, and now I'm beyond. I'm in my 60s, early 60s, I might add. The parts start changing. I played my first grandfather on Modern Family. It's like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, you've got to keep your own sort of, artistic knife sharp, and bring what you can to the things you can do. I mean, I'm doing this show right now, The Umbrella Academy. I can't talk about the part I'm playing,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a great part, and it's a challenging part. It's also an historical person part, so everybody knows who this person is. And I can't mention it because it'll, aside from signing an NDA, it'll take you right to the time and place where this film is supposed to be.
Yeah.
But I approach every part. If I play bad guys or supposed bad guys, like, in Internal Affairs, I asked Richard Gere to kill my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think, my character thinks this is where we're at. My parents, they don't understand business. They won't cooperate. They're immigrants, whatever. And they just don't understand how things are done today. And I just, I can't abide that. And I need you to kill him. Now, this guy has reached that logical conclusion, logic for him, or that conclusion in a logical way. Although it's like, are you kidding me? You want, and more importantly, it's sort of like, well, in his world, it's a rational, calm decision. It's not as outrageous as the rest of the world is perceiving it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to sort of understand the inner workings of these guys. And, bad people don't wake up in the morning and say, I'm bad, and they put on the bad mask. Or people that make bad decisions, or people that are dangerous or destructive people. And I occasionally play those people.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an obliviousness to their behavior sometimes. So, you don't put on the evil mustache and go, yeah, ha, dishonest John. you just keep on keeping on. So, and those are challenging parts, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say you go back to a part like Carl, you don't condescend the parts, I don't say, well, he's just a janitor, so he's he's this.
Mm-hmm.
And you approach the parts with dignity. I mention this often, but my father had a clothing store, and a small clothing store in our hometown of London, Ontario, and I would work there, and he would say to me, listen, the mayor of the city comes in, he buys his clothes here, and also a factory worker, that we had the McCormick's, and they made, cookies or something. A lot of factories of beer, Labatt's beers, they come in here, you treat them both the same, because every man has his dignity.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a very important thing to me. Every person you treat the same, they have their own dignity and their own honor. You don't treat anybody differently. And I kind of approach my parts that way. I don't condescend, is what I try not to do to the people I'm playing. And occasionally I get a part where, I don't know whether I like this guy. So, you have to find out how to like him or how to not like him. It's a balancing act.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any upcoming roles that you can talk about or you want to plug?
Well, I really think the Umbrella Academy one that I'm doing next year that opens in January, everybody should see. Because it's a pretty damn good role that I play. And maybe we can talk about that someday.
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying, I'm enjoying I'm doing the crossword mysteries. I play a cop in that, and I always enjoy the sort of permutations on playing a cop.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nothing, hold on, I'm going to sneeze.
Okay.
All right, one more time.
Bless you.
You can cut that out.
Bless you.
Thank you. I, for the most part, what have I done recently that I've really liked? I mean, I really liked working on this movie Love Shot, which is on Netflix now.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that film, and I like the part I play. I play kind of a Jewish mobster.
Mm-hmm.
And have you seen that one?
Not yet.
No, do you have Netflix?
I do.
Check it out. It's really a good movie. Stephen Fine is the director.
Oh, nice.
Loach and Amy Tang are the two leads in it, and it's a good movie. I really enjoy, the cliche for me is like, and what's your favorite part? It's the next one.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoy working with all sorts of directors. I particularly enjoy working with first-time and young directors and new directors who have a lot of energy, as might be the word of the day. Remember on, what was it, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, they'd have the word?
Yeah.
Went on at Pee-wee's Playhouse, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody would cheer when we used the word. I thought that I think that working with those directors, first-time directors, and also lower-budget movies, sometimes offer their own challenges that are really fun to shoot because you're looking for, it's not like you can block off the whole street like a Hollywood movie. You have to actually shoot on the street with real people, and they mic you and kind of steal stuff,
Yeah.
And that's got an interesting vibe and energy to it also. But so I like working on indie films. I've got about 4 films in development. 1 that I'm working on, and 3 that I'm sort of shepherding with other writer producers and directors. And I find exciting because the process of getting to get something up on its feet is really quite exciting for me. And to be part of the development and to, imagine the possibilities and try to blow it out and make it in a way that's, interesting, get it as interesting as good up to the script level, and then shoot it. Because once you start shooting the movie, if you don't have a good blueprint, then you're kind of screwed because so that all that stuff that takes you up to the shooting, and it's also kind of a fait accompli. So it's like once you've got the script and you're shooting it, it's almost like the movie's done.
Mm-hmm.
And then depending on the filmmaker, whether you've got a free-form filmmaker like a Robert Altman type, to make a historical reference, it sort of plays fast and loose with the script. And Gary Marshall was that way, played fast and loose with the script. Or whether you have somebody that's very specific, like when I worked on West Wing,
mm-hmm.
his name, Aaron Sorkin would come up and say, that's and there, not or. He was very specific about his words. It's not
mm-hmm.
this or that, it's this and that. And that's important, if you're working with, and the Hitchcock apparently was like that, and De Palma, and a lot of people that are, very specific. And there are different styles of filmmaking,
Yeah.
Fincher is different than, Christopher Nolan, and et cetera, et cetera. So I just like the opportunity of working with different directors, different actors, and being involved in sort of different situations. If it's similar in a way to this or that, something I've done in the past, that's okay. But, it's a constantly changing landscape, and people are always making films in a different way. For example, when I did the TV show Justified, I'd never experienced, like they were rolling 6 cameras at one moment in time. And we all had different marks. We're all in the same scene. But also they're shooting on digital. So there's no real time length to the takes. You can shoot a take for a minute, 2 minutes, and it's going onto a hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
When you were shooting film, you have these film mags that only last, a certain amount of time. The Panavision film mag. So it can be a different energy to shooting a movie, right?
Right.
And all that sort of encompasses different ways of working. I don't know if I'm getting too technical or boring on you, but
No, you're wonderful, John. I'm glad that you're out there still working and you got all these projects going on. And I thank you for coming back on again today.
Oh, please, thank you for letting me, speak too much.
Well, you have yourself a great day.
Thanks. You take care now.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it. John Kapelos. Great guy. Love his stories. I could listen to him talk all day. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Add me as a friend on Facebook. Join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.